Typically, when it comes to whiskey, terroir is bullshit because what terroir it literally translates to the flavor of the land.
Right. It's a big deal in wine.
Right. It's a huge deal in wine because they've mapped out what the soil content is in different regions, and they're able to detect again how that's going to impact what's being grown there. Right. And it is, first of all, for him, it is 100% effective in what impacts the grain. So I will say this right now. You guys were detecting a minerality in our whiskey all the way through. That's from a locally grown yellow corn that grows all around us. That is the one thing I can say because we've distilled yellow corn outside of our region, within our region. There is a distinctive minerality within the corn that's grown in the north, in local to us. North of what's called the Black Lion Prairie, there's a sandier soil, and corn grown in that region has a minerality to it that you don't see in other things.
So let me just say, Adam, let's start the bonus segment with the beginning of that he was doing. I know
sounds amazing.
I know we're still live on Facebook, but that was such a great explanation. I don't want to ask him to do it again. Our friend Chris Hart, who nobody cares about, was
Chris Hart.
Was mentioning on the show notes, was asking Robert to tell us how terroir is bullshit, and so this was a great explanation that I really appreciated before we go into our final tasting here. That I thought was really enlightening because with wine, as we mentioned, terroir is like everything. Like it is a huge deal, and you could make the same argument for whiskey, but there are people apparently who are saying no, and you're saying there's something there, right?
Yeah, to me there definitely is something there, but the big thing with terroir, especially in whiskey, when it comes to making whiskey, because grain is such a commodity. Typically, you're not isolating individual farms. They're just mixing. They're gathering all the corn or all the grain that's grown in a region or area, and they're just dumping it all together. So it's very difficult to tell once that's all dumped together. It's just gonna be what it.
You can't tell where exactly it came
exactly.
from.
Well, and we know from cigars that this makes a huge difference.
Yes.
You could be a plot of land over here and a plot of land half an acre away, and it have a huge difference.
It's soil content.
How much sun, the wind that went by,
and what was planted there before, and all of those things.
100%. And then, again, and the argument is like, oh, well, but when I taste a Jamaican rum, I get that funk. I get that. I can immediately tell it's Jamaican,
but I love
even
that
though
funk.
the molasses comes from everywhere. Well, the argument to me that is, that's part of the other parts of their production is going to create that characteristic. But if you isolated Jamaican molasses versus molasses from elsewhere, could you tell a difference between the Jamaican molasses within the same production methodology and molasses from elsewhere in that same methodology? Is there a taste difference? And I'm going to tell you right now, there would be. And
I believe that.
Again, it could be minute. It could be a very small part of what it is. It could be 30%. It could be, it's very difficult to tell until you actually do it. And that's the big issue in spirits, is that it's not really been a concern or something that's done other than in areas like with Sotol or with mezcal or with cognac, where they have very defined regions of where Grand Champagne comes from for cognac, what the Borderies is, because I will tell you, the guys in cognac will tell you there are 5 distinct regions of cognac that are produced. And the Grand Champagne tastes very different than Borderies. And Borderies, they will tell you, there's a violet character that comes through in that distillate that doesn't exist in other regions or for spirit from other areas. And it's something that's very distinctive that you can taste. Again, if you're just tasting and you're slugging and you're just hanging out, you're not going to sit there and decipher that. But for the people that do, the people that are sitting here and being nerdy about it like we are, it is something that very much exists. It's just that for the most part, we haven't cared about it enough.
So are you fun to go out drinking with, or does
terrible to go out drinking with?
Does the nerd factor totally
the nerd
take
comes
over?
In? No, I mean, for the most part, when I go out drinking at night, I am not gonna sit there and analyze spirit. That's not what I'm doing.
You do a really good job of it, though, I have to say.
I mean, that's what they pay me the big bucks for. No, I wish. No, that's
I can totally see you geeking out like this.
I
But
can
You probably
when-
have to get started on it, right?
exactly. If someone comes in and asks me a question on it, I'm gonna sit there and I will get into it with people.
See, I just love that. But to me,
Otherwise, it's a party.
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. Speaking of a party, let's try our final spirit today. This is the Ironroot Harbinger, but it's a little different Harbinger, right?
This is a single barrel. The total wine selected last year. It's a 129 proof Bloody Butcher Corn.
So did they come up to you and select the barrel? Is that
They
how it
did. They came up to us.
Can we get a picture of Bloody Butcher Corn and put it up?
worked? Yeah. Oh, Adam, maybe you can.
Like, I'm
maybe
sorry
you
to
can
throw that
Google-
on you.
Google
but like,
that for
apparently
us.
this
Google
sounds-
skills. Let's see how he
He
does.
has no,
Sounds
Adam has
pretty neat.
mad Google skills. He'll find it. He'll find it. So they came up. They selected this barrel that.
Oh yeah,
uh,
he's
two-
so good at this.
Two of the best we've ever had.
Can we
on this
sample
show.
those and put them on the little red sound machine?
Man, if I could sample that and just like put it on the keyboard, I could make a total dance record out of that. Boom, boom.
we can cover up this sound.
and that would probably be good. All right. Yes.
Let's get that.
So obviously we're talking about a really high proof here, but
We are.
what else should we know?
So what's
going into
funny?
this?
Immediately on the nose,
Yeah.
it doesn't smell high proof as the last one.
No, it really doesn't. You're absolutely right. The last one
It's
kind of got the
significantly less
nose
proof, but yeah.
got the nose a little more than this. You're right.
Like
The
it's
wood sugars start really playing into this one.
Yeah, so it immediately doesn't assault the nose like the last one does. This smells brown sugar.
Holy cow, this is
It
good.
smells.
This is a brown sugar bomb, is what it is.
Is it really? I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
I'm just smelling on
Yeah.
it. It smells a little. There's a little marshmallow in the background.
Mhm. Yes, you've got that right too.
There's a.
I pulled it up on it's on the image right now.
So
Is
the
it?
image,
Nice.
the image is on right now.
This
of
is
the-
Bloody Butcher Corn.
It's one of the
Bloody Butcher Corn
oldest
looks like.
varietals developed in the U.S. It's a
Wow, that is crazy looking.
hybrid
corn.
of yellow dent corn and then some of the Indian red. So it is just dark dent
So
corn.
you don't necessarily put that on the grill and.
Oh no, you could, and it would be very, very good. I tell you, when we're testing out new corns, because every year there's about 4 or 5 new varietals that we test out, because I just want to see what they do. Like, I mean,
Right.
there are literally
Might as well try it.
thousands of different
Okay,
varietals of
just
corn.
now there's a little
seeing that
lapse.
right now?
Yeah, I'm just now seeing the image of the
Yeah,
Bloody
it's
Butcher Corn.
gorgeous.
Totally get why it's called that, but it's awesome.
No,
What's amazing is like because there are and correct me if I'm wrong. There are many varieties of corn that we don't just eat.
right.
That we don't like
Right.
just put over the stove or put on the
They'll
grill
be used
or boil
for
or
animal
whatever.
feed, or they'll be used for other purposes.
Yeah, that
Like,
they don't get soft enough or they're not flavorful enough or whatever. They're more like just
put
kind of
them
a
on-
corn grain.
They
kind
put
of
them
thing,
on
right?
sale at Thanksgiving in those
For
baskets.
decoration or-
Decoration, yeah.
And it has to do because they're much higher in protein content, which for us as distillers is way more interesting because sugar's great. It creates alcohol. It's sweet, cool, great. But it's those other things that actually create the unique characteristics. What becomes organic acids that transfer into esters that go through esterification and esterification over years in barrel that become these really cool flavor profiles. But I can tell you, even like when we get a new corn, we'll take it and I turn it into a cornbread. Same recipe every single time versus
Nice.
yellow corn, and we taste it. And it's not that it will turn into exactly what you're going to taste in a whiskey, but when interesting flavors show up in that cornbread that are different than the yellow corn, that's what's super interesting to me. That's why when we'll actually go into a whiskey form of it.
That's so Texas hometown beautiful right
Yeah.
there.
Isn't it? Yeah.
We'll try this corn in a cornbread,
Yeah. See if it turns out
and
good.
if it works,
If it turns out good,
it goes in
then-
whiskey.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love
this
you for
is-
that, brother. I
this
want to
is-
tell you this.
This is serious, is what this is.
Where is the smoky flavor coming from? There's a smoke in this that's not in any of your other whiskeys. This is very unique compared to the rest of
So
them.
this is a super unique barrel type, something we call a wave stave. So they actually carve grooves into the barrel, and they do a light char over the top. So what the tops of the grooves become charred, the bottoms just get toasted. So it's a a charred barrel, but it's very lightly charred, and so you get these really unique wood characteristics that you can't get any other way. And so we've started using these barrel types because you get that wood
oaky.
smoke. Yeah,
Very oaky,
Very oaky, but it's got the smoke, like you were talking about.
Like there's an oak astringency, and it's what's weird is it's in the middle of the palate. There's an oak astringency that shows up right there. That like right halfway through the swallow, you want to go, nah. But then it follows through with this sweet
the corn comes through at this
finish that just, wow.
And so we use this typically for about 20 to 30% of blends is because you get that structure from the oak and you get the sweetness, but we use that as part of the overall blend of what we're doing. It doesn't dominate what we're doing.
Right.
It's just that kind of, and when you isolate it in single barrels, it's really fun. And that's what I love about some of the single barrels. You get cool things you can't get any other way.
So it's one of the best things you've said all day. It's really fun. And that, to me, is what this whole thing is all about. It's really
Is there a
fun.
little grapiness in this too?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Yes.
tasting so many weird things in here that I wouldn't expect. And I want to make sure that I'm not like,
Oh, yeah.
I've been drinking, I'm just making shit up now. You know?
We have, again, and there's periodically that it appears in our whiskey through some of the fermentation, some of the things we did. We do get this kind of grapey character, and it's, again, it comes from some of those cognac-y techniques
It's a
that we
very
use.
green grape kind of flavor, like green, like grape skin right next to the skin, kind of a real tight. I don't know how else to describe it. Like I'm just searching for words right now.
But it's wonderful.
As you add
I are
water,
smart.
it just kind of opens
I'll give
up.
you a word.
Oh, yeah.
Kick ass.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
delicious.
fun.
Yeah, it really is. Robert, so you've just won a Best Whiskey in the World award.
High five.
What's next for you? Like, where do you go from here?
You know, you go crazier, you go older, we're not only are we taking our core range older, every release we do gets older.
Hold on, perspective. How old is the whiskey that just won best?
The youngest cask was 27 months. The oldest one was 4 years old. So it was
Wow.
This is a
Very
4-year-old.
Very
so
impressive.
For lack of a better term, this is a 4-year-old whiskey.
Well, yeah, I would say on average it probably was about 3-year-old. But the younger was younger than just over 2.
But the way
oldest
age
over 4.
statements work, you wouldn't have been able to say that.
Oh,
Right,
okay. You
exactly.
would have to say what I'm amazed about is the accolades that you got for that come from something that doesn't have an age statement like a lot of them, reserve 12-year-old or reserve
Sure,
10-year-old
right,
or
of
8-year-old or
course.
any of that stuff. It's literally less than 4 years old, and it's that kind of good. People take heed. Your whiskey doesn't have to be super old to be
Right,
amazing.
with respect to all of our friends.
and old whiskey, a lot of times, is amazing. However,
Right.
it doesn't have to be.
But with respect to all of our friends who are in Scotland and are making that wonderful aged whiskey, there's some
Especially
kids.
in sherry casks. I
Oh
love
my
that.
God, it's so good.
There's-
Sherry casks are so good.
But there's some kids in Texas.
Got some 4-year-old single malt.
There's
coming along.
There's
Oh my
some
God.
kids in Texas giving you a
Nice.
run for your money with 3-year-old whiskey. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, age is important. There's some amazing, wonderful things that come with age. It's not everything.
Tell us about that.
but
What
it is
does
important.
age do? Okay, so if you take, for instance, take any one of these whiskeys right here, stick it in a barrel. Your standard American bourbon barrel, stick it in a barrel, and age it. Tell me what happens.
So, there's a couple. There's a complication with that. So, one is how is it cut off the still? How are you taking it off the still? Are you including a little bit more of the tail, some more of the funkier, more estery, heavy distillate? Are you including that in your spirit? Because that's
You're being
super-
too scientific.
Yeah.
Let's back up. Let's back up a little. Let's go for absolute layman. I take a bottle that I already have and pour it into a charred oak barrel that I got from. There's a couple companies that make those that you can age your own whiskey, right?
What happens to
What
it?
happens to it if I leave it there for 10 years?
it would be gone if you're putting it in a small barrel. It ain't gonna last that long, and that's
So
some
you
of the
need
things.
a number of
So
bottles.
volume makes a difference.
Volume
Okay.
makes a difference. I think that again,
How many bottles fit? Because I'm just going down to the very basics. Okay, how many bottles of this size do you get out of one barrel? what we call a barrel when we talk about
A
it.
standard 53-gallon barrel, which is kind of set by Kentucky with 200 liters, with the they say over in Europe. Typically, it's going to be anywhere from, when you do low proof, 40 to 100 proof, you're going to do anywhere from 180 to 100 to 220 bottles.
Okay.
When you go to cast strength, you're going to drop down closer to 130 to 150.
Okay, so let's average that to 150.
Mm-hmm.
So you take something like this. Like, let's just take, for instance, this 90 proof straight bourbon whiskey. And you stick it in a barrel that you have kicking around the shop. And you stick it in there for 10 more years. What's going to happen to it?
Well, you're going to evaporate a lot out of it.
Okay.
Depending on the condition, like here in Texas, you're going to lose anywhere from 6 to 15%, depending on the
This is called
distillery.
the angel share.
It is indeed. We have very thirsty angels here in Texas because apparently we need a lot of help.
Yes, because the air needs more humidity.
Exactly.
Yes.
And again, it depends because of the intensity of the heat and the length of the summer. We're
Yeah.
gonna have a little bit more interaction.
Right.
Humidity, obviously, it's going to determine are you evaporating alcohol or are you evaporating water because of osmosis and all the fun chemistry that goes on with that. So again, how much you're evaporating, what you're evaporating will change. Is your proof going up in cask?
Right.
If it's going up, you're going to start.
That's if water's evaporating.
If water's evaporating, so if you have very low humidity, you're going to evaporate more water because of osmosis. Your proof's going to skyrocket. So, like in the higher warehouse areas of Kentucky, or
Well, you're in North Texas
Right.
area. So what do you usually end up with over there?
we're going to average between 7 to 10%.
And is it mostly
Angel share.
water or alcohol?
For us, it's going to be more on the water side. Although we spray water on our warehouse floor pretty often, and
Keep the humidity up.
we try to keep humidity
Right,
up. So I
right.
try to minimize that. Again, we are going to go up about a proof or half a proof every year in cask. Typically, again, there's always outliers off of that. So you'll see things start creeping up, start going up off of that, and it's. Again, what they're extracting then, because again, the higher proof you go, the more alcohol, you're going to extract more alcohol-soluble stuff. So you're going to get more tannins, you're going to get more,
The vanilla flavors.
Vanillin's
Yeah.
a phenol, which is extracted much higher, which is, again, it's really interesting because vanillin is a phenol, so it's extracted higher, but you also have caramelized sugars, which get dissolved at much lower concentrations of alcohol. So they're more water soluble. So
Right.
you can get a vanilla and caramel come out at two kind of different areas and at two different rates. So if you want more caramel, you're going to go more lower proof. If you want more vanilla, you'll go a higher proof.
Ha!
And
This
so,
is very interesting.
How amazing is that? So within your barrel, like the wood itself and the char on the wood holds all of these flavors. And then depending on the alcohol content that you put in, the temperature that it's in, and then on top of that, like the disparation of temperature between one side and the other side of the
Yep,
barrel, I'm
yep.
sure like those things
Oh, yeah.
start to blend and get
and then it comes back down to the barrel. What part of the forest was it in? What conditions was it growing? Was it did you have a lot of really rainy seasons? Did you have a lot of very dry seasons? That's going to encourage what the wood is doing, how tight those rings are on the wood, and what that's going to give up to the whiskey ultimately. And so
amazing.
that's why you can have the exact same whiskey right next to each other on a rack in the same part of the warehouse, and those barrels are going to taste different. And it's just, if you do not
Amazing.
taste the barrels, there
Yeah.
is no way to know how those barrels are developing. And that's why we love that élevage, that French concept where, again, the guys in Army, some of the guys in Army Neck we were talking to were like, how often do you taste barrels? We're like, every barrel, every day.
All right, well, I'm going to have to come out and lick some barrels.
Yeah, come
It-
hang out.
It reminds me of the words of the great Kenny Rogers, who once said, in relation to his chicken restaurant, Kenny Rogers Roasters, it's the wood that makes it good.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you got to know when to
Well,
hold
you
them.
do need to know when to hold them and when to
You
fold
gotta know
them.
when to
That's
fold
true.
them.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. But it's the wood that makes it good.
You got to know when to walk away.
Actually, I pulled up
When
to
to
the
run.
to the drive-thru.
both are true.
You got to
pulled-
count your money. I'm not stopping this, by the way.
I don't think there's a Kenny Rogers
When you're sitting
Roasters
at the
left.
table.
Yeah, right? I don't think they exist anymore.
There'll be
but
time enough for counting.
I went to one, And
When
I
the
pulled up.
dealing's done.
I pulled up to the drive-through, and I swear to God, the person came on the speaker and said, "Kenny Rogers Roasters, it's the wood that makes it good. May I help you?"
That's awesome.
I've remembered that for my entire life. I just want to point
there
that out. I got to tell you, Robert, this has been such fun. Ian, are you still with the Promethean? Is that still your favorite?
That is so good. That one and second, was it the straight bourbon?
Yes, that one right
Those
there.
two are my 100%
But
favorites.
I just want to speak up and say there's
that
nothing.
Promethean is
There's nothing we
so
tried
good.
today that didn't float my
So
boat. Like
good.
everything was really, really
The
delicious.
last one we tried is probably, I would actually say probably Promethean and then
That guy.
that
Yeah.
guy and then
That
the
guy.
straight bourbon. They're all good though. It's hard to say. It's like picking a favorite child. They're
Yeah.
all so good.
Yeah, and that's got to be tough for you too. When people ask you what your favorite is, what do you say?
It depends on the
Whiskey.
day. What kid is behaving the best that day is really what it comes down to.
I want to thank everybody for joining us for the bonus segment, and thank you for joining us for show number 174. Next week, number 175, halfway to 200. We are very excited about all of it, and I love you all. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.
Thanks for letting me be on the last of the musical episodes before
That's
we
right.
go crazy.
This was a huge, huge moment in Smoking and Toasting
The
history.
end of an era.
My mom is very upset about
It's
us
the end of an
losing-
era.
My mom is very upset about us losing the Clash, by the way.
No. She a Clash
No,
fan?
she has no idea.
She has
who
no
the Clash
idea,
are. No idea. Have a great week,
It's
people.
party
Cheers.
time.
Cheers.